Hi everybody, good evening, happy Sunday. My name is Bryant Greening. I'm an attorney and co-founder of LegalRideshare. I appreciate you stopping by and spending your night with us. We thought it would be important to get to know some of the drivers and let the drivers know who we are. We figured what better way to do that than a Facebook Live where we can all interact together, kind of no pressure. Anybody who has questions can leave them on a message board or post them to our wall, and we'd be happy to address those. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to dive right in and talk a little bit about what LegalRideshare is, what we do, and the types of circumstances that we help drivers with and information that we are really hopeful that drivers walk away with. To begin, what is LegalRideshare? You've probably heard our name, but you might not know exactly who we are, what we do, and when you might need us. LegalRideshare is the only law firm in the United States that's entirely dedicated to Uber and Lyft accident and injury claims. So what does that mean? It means if you're involved in an accident when you're on the Uber or Lyft platform, you want to give us a call so that we can walk you through the injury claim. We can tell you which insurance companies you're going to want to talk to get your car fixed. If you have wage loss, your car is your income. So if you're unable to drive, there's going to be some amount of wage loss that you have. We can help you navigate that process. Our attorneys are particularly dedicated to the injury claim, but that doesn't mean that's the only time you can contact us. We're always happy to give you some advice on which way to go, which company to call, and how you're going to maximize what you're going to walk away with at the end of some sort of insurance claim. People always ask us, where did LegalRideshare come from? What was the impetus of this idea? As Uber and Lyft were growing in Chicago, me and our co-founder Matt Belcher started talking about the fact that there needed to be an information source out there for rideshare drivers and rideshare passengers. And we're on Facebook right now. I tell people all the time, LegalRideshare was a Twitter feed before it was anything else. We were getting questions through our personal injury firm's website. We started answering those on a Twitter feed, and one thing led to another, and now you're looking at a brick and mortar where we help rideshare drivers every day. We were with this process since the beginning. The first time that I saw a Lyft pink mustache on the front of a car, I thought to myself, what is this? And here we are, we're representing drivers a couple years later and making sure to maximize their walk away. If you're hearing any music in the background, I can promise you it's not our media man Jared playing the bass. On Sunday nights, you hear an open mic night through the wall, so please don't let that distract our conversation. I have hit on what LegalRideshare is, the types of claims we handle, and with that, I was talking about insurance. At its base, rideshare and LegalRideshare are intertwined with insurance. We've always got to be having that in the forefront. Drivers ask us all the time, why do I need a rideshare specific policy, or do I even need a rideshare specific policy? The answer is absolutely. Uber and Lyft do a really terrible job of educating drivers on what they need to do to protect themselves if they're in an accident or injured. So that's why what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what you need to do to be ahead of the problem before it occurs. With Uber and Lyft, they will provide insurance when you're on their platform, and they will match your collision coverage, meaning if your car gets damaged, if you take out collision coverage for your personal insurance, Uber and Lyft will match that during periods 2 and 3. But Uber and Lyft will not provide coverage to you during period 1. That means you're vulnerable if you're cruising around waiting for a fare, you haven't connected with anybody, you don't have a passenger in the car, and somebody rear ends you and hits and runs. What are you going to do? That's going to cost you money out of pocket if your insurance company won't cover it because you didn't take out the right insurance, And Uber and Lyft are going to say, that's not our problem, you're in the wrong period to get covered by us. It's that scenario that can put drivers in a really bad situation. Like I was telling you before, and as you know, your car is your income. So if your car is out of commission and you can't get back on the road, you are going to be in tough luck. You're going to have to fix the car, and you're not going to be making money while you're doing it. So we tell drivers all the time, the rideshare specific endorsement is really important, and it's worth every penny. This is your livelihood. You've got to protect yourself. We also talk about if there are small accidents, what to do. A lot of drivers will say that they don't want to deal with an insurance claim. Oh, I'm not really hurt. I don't really want to get a doctor or an insurance agent involved. We recommend that you do see a medical doctor as soon as you can after even a small accident. And the reason for that is because you don't know how your body's going to react. We're not telling you that you need to make an insurance claim. We're not telling you that you need to take this all the way to the end. But to see your personal doctor or to stop at an urgent care, one, doesn't hurt, and two, it sets up the rest of the claim should that become necessary. If 10 days after the accident, you haven't seen anybody, and then your neck starts to bother you, it's going to be difficult to go to an insurance company then and say, that accident from a week and a half ago is the cause of these pains. We tell drivers all the time, just go get checked out. It starts the initial process. You get some paperwork down that the accident occurred, and you're protecting yourself. You're always making sure that your livelihood is the most important thing and that you're keeping that your sole focus. Looks like we got a question here. Is there anything that can be done to level the field so that taxis, limos, and ride shares are all on the same page? Particularly in Chicago, we're talking about the congestion tax. That's an interesting question. We are in a situation right now where rideshare came in and pushed taxis and limos to the side. Nobody's going to argue that rideshare did it the right way. We talk about Uber and we talk about Travis Kalanick and how he operated with the ask for forgiveness later mentality. We would say it is time to try to level the playing field in a way so that all people who are trying to make an income in this industry have a fair shake. This congestion tax, I don't necessarily think that that's the way to go. In Chicago, we know that there are a lot of people who are not doing Uber and Lyft who are contributing to congestion. And we would actually argue that Uber and Lyft, and when I say those companies' names, I mean all the rideshare companies, are actually doing a part to help with congestion. There's shared rides, for instance, if we can incentivize pool rides, if we can incentivize people to take rideshare to public transportation, that's going to help the problem. We don't like the idea of focusing solely on rideshare as the problem because it's not the only problem. We actually have a lot of clients who rely on rideshare because they can't get to public transportation, or back in the day, taxis wouldn't go to their neighborhood. So where there are problems with rideshare, there are also a lot of good. And at the end of the day, Uber and Lyft are two of the most innovative companies in the world. And I think that they can find a way to innovate through this problem. And the cities might be taking it a step too far in taxing the customers, which is ultimately going to hurt the driver's bottom line. If rideshare demand is down, rideshare services are going to go down, the amount of rides are going to go down, and ultimately drivers are going to be hurt. Getting back to the accident and injury component of what we were talking about, we actually have been working with a company called the Accident Liability Institute. And I think that's a really important company for drivers to jot down. Our friend Luis started the company and has been putting information together for drivers to make sure that they understand how to handle an accident, what insurance claims look like, what are the specific laws and rules of the road. Some of this stuff you think to yourself, look, I took my driving test. Why do I need to go through this process again? I took the test. I do these types of insurance claims all the time. There were issues that I didn't know about. There were rules that I had forgotten. And to have that refresher and to have that certification that you're a safe driver, you've been looking through your rule book, you've been refreshing yourself on accident and injury and insurance, that's only going to put you in a better position should something go wrong later. So, I said at the beginning, part of what we're doing here tonight is trying to help drivers be proactive. When you come to Legal Rideshare and you call us and say, I've been in an accident, what do I do? Well, we're already on defense. Something has already happened. Let's talk about what we can do to put you in a better position to make sure that doesn't happen, that you don't need us. Ultimately, we're always here if you do, but I want to make sure that you've got the information to protect yourself from the get-go. We got a question from James who said that he'd been retaliatorily discharged for false reasons. Uber won't communicate with him, and he has proof of that. James, that's a really terrible situation, and that's something that we hear about very often. The fact that you have proof that's a good fact. I assume that means that you have a dash cam, which we recommend every driver has, and that way if there is something false that happens, you can document it, you can submit it to the rideshare company, you can submit it to the police if necessary. But James, in your situation, the rideshare company took the step and deactivated you. In short, there's not much that you can do other than put that video, put that evidence in front of the rideshare company, go to the green light hub, make sure that they understand that you have been falsely accused, their process is faulty, their rider is the reason why we're in this mess, but the decision is ultimately going to be theirs. I've said before, there's no due process in rideshare, and that's BS. Drivers put everything on the line. They uproot their lives, they put miles on their cars, they're paying their bills, they're sending their kids to school, and they're relying on these fares. And for the rideshare company to unilaterally take that away without any sort of process, without any hearing, that's crazy. So we've actually been working with local and state government to try to get some sort of initiative, at least in Illinois right now, out there, so that the politicians understand this is a problem, that thousands and thousands of their constituents, the rideshare drivers, are vulnerable, and that something needs to be put in place so that they're protected when this happens. When we talk about deactivation, we're ultimately talking about the independent contractor issue. I'm sure you've heard in California that they recently passed a law that is unblurring the line between independent contractor and employee, and actually placing rideshare drivers in that employee category. We talk with drivers who are pro AB5, we talk with drivers who are anti AB5, but one of the things that we're excited about in the fact that laws like this are being passed is that there has to then be some sort of deactivation process in place. You can't just fire somebody for nothing. Or at least you have to give them some sort of hearing or opportunity to defend themselves. That would also allow for unemployment benefits. So if there was a deactivation, James, at least you would be entitled to something while you were trying to find another way to put some money in your pocket. That was a really long way of me saying, right now, unfortunately, independent contractor means there's not much recourse, but we're trying to get there for you. Juan, hello from, you say you're from California. Hope it's a little warmer there than it is in Illinois. We're supposed to get some snow tonight. And I don't know if anybody's watching the Packers game, but I saw flurries that are coming our direction from there. So, hello in sunny California. Getting back to the accident, injury component of what we're talking about, people ask us all the time, why do I need a lawyer? Why am I calling LegalRideshare? Why am I calling another law firm? Can't I just handle this myself? I'm going to tell you something that you probably don't expect to hear from most lawyers. You don't always need us. There are times in which it's perfectly acceptable and smart to handle things by yourself, and I would say usually that would be a property damage claim. We tell drivers that if say you've been rear-ended, you've got anything from a scratch to a totaled vehicle, you can make that insurance claim. You can call the insurance company and say, this is what happened, this is the damage to my car, can you help me through this process? And they're going to take a look at the damage, they're going to take a look at the value of your car, and they're ultimately going to make you an offer. Most of the time that offer is pretty on point with the value of the damage. They're going to get it fixed. If I get involved, yes, maybe we can add a little bit of money to that offer, but I don't think it would be typically worth the fee that you're going you pay the lawyer. So I tell you, if you've got if you've got a property damage claim, give us a call. If you have a question, we'd be happy to consult with you and let you know which direction you need to go in. But that's a claim that you should handle, and that's money that you should keep. If you pay us to handle your property damage claim, you're not going to have enough money to fix your car, and that's not right. For injury claims, however, appropriately, there's an ambulance driving by. We recommend that you do contact a lawyer. There's going to be some instances where we'll tell you, look, you went to the doctor one time, here's how you handle the claim, here's how you maximize what you're going to walk away with, but this is something that I think you can do. If you start to get in more continuous treatment, say you've got physical therapy that's recommended, you've got, God forbid, a surgery, that's where the lawyer is really going to help add value to your case. And what do I mean by value? I mean, we're going to make claims that somebody who doesn't handle this every day wouldn't know how to make. Things like pain and suffering, things like disability, loss in normal life, making a wage loss claim. It's one thing to go to an insurance company and say, I missed 2 weeks of work and I need to be compensated for that. It's another thing to know how to make that calculation and to ensure that the insurance company takes or gives it full credit. Pain and suffering, you hear that term all the time when personal injury attorneys are advertising on TV. It doesn't really mean anything. It's kind of this made up phrase that lawyers and insurance companies use, and it's something that I fight for every day. If you don't handle a claim like that, you're not going to know how to make the argument to maximize that value of your insurance claim, and therefore that's going to be money that you're costing yourself. So the lawyer comes into play where there's serious injury claims that need to be litigated or need to be fleshed out in a way that's not just the medical bills. We got a question from Donald. Is Uber provided insurance enough to protect you? Donald, that's a great question. The short answer is no. Uber and Lyft and most of the rideshare companies out there provide pretty good coverage during periods 2 and 3. So let's first by just defining those periods in case somebody's not familiar with that terminology. Period 1 is when you've got the app on, you're cruising around waiting for a fare, but you haven't connected with anyone. Period 2 is you've connected with a passenger and you're on the way to pick them up. And period 3 is when you've got a passenger in the car and you're on the way to their destination. Periods 2 and 3, Uber and Lyft will match your collision coverage from your personal insurance company, and they will provide liability coverage up to $1 million. In most states, it varies depending on where you are slightly, but substantial insurance. And they will also provide what they call underinsured motorist coverage and uninsured motorist coverage. That's all really good. During period 1, however, you're extremely vulnerable because if you haven't taken out a rideshare specific endorsement with your private insurance company, you might find yourself not protected for an uninsured claim, meaning think a hit and run or somebody rear ends you who doesn't have insurance themselves. You also would find yourself in a tough spot for a property damage claim. Uber and Lyft will not provide property damage coverage to fix your vehicle in that situation. And your private insurance might say, look, you haven't taken out the rideshare endorsement, so we're not going to cover this. You're working for Uber. That's the gap. We've all heard that term before, gap insurance. That's the gap. You have found yourself in a spot where, say you've been rear-ended, your bumper's hanging off, you can't drive that car around. Your personal insurance won't cover it. Uber and Lyft's insurance won't cover it. You are unable to work. You're unable to make money. You have fallen into a gap, and you really don't have recourse other than to pull your money out of your own wallet and fix that vehicle. What I would tell you, and as we talked about a little bit ago, was make sure to take out that rideshare specific endorsement. Go to your insurance company and say, do you offer coverage to Uber and Lyft drivers? If so, explain to me what you're covering and how you're going to fill in the gaps. And in that regard, you are protecting yourself. You are buying insurance for your work, for your job, for your livelihood. We don't endorse one insurance company over another. Most of the players right now are offering it. I know that State Farm does in most states, Farmers does, Allstate does. Shop around. Go figure out who's going to give you the best coverage for the cheapest price, and that will be your saving grace. We tell people all the time, when you're on the road as a rideshare driver, it's not a matter of if, but when. That doesn't mean that you're going to be the one to cause the crash. There's a lot of people out there who are bad drivers. There's a lot of people there who are eating, putting on makeup, talking on their phone, whatever they're doing. If one of those people hits you, you need to make sure that you're covered in the worst case scenario. Juan asked us a question here. He says that he'd like to know if signing the settlement contract that Uber is requiring on their misclassification payoff means that you're giving your rights to receive anything once AB 5 is implemented. One, I have not reviewed that settlement contract in its entirety, so I would ask if you could to send it over to us. I'd be happy to take a look and get back to you to make sure that I fully understand what they're putting out there for the California drivers. What I can tell you is that AB 5 has not been passed to allow companies to weasel their way out. This is going to be a strong law. Where we're seeing some blur, some gray in that law is whether Uber and Lyft drivers are going to fall under it. I think it's pretty clear. This is not new law. This is not a new decision that came down from the courts. There has always been an independent contractor versus employee model in California, and AB 5 was specifically directed at closing some of the perceived gaps in the gig economy, and it hits on some construction, things like those industries. Uber and Lyft are putting in a ton of money. I saw $90 million coming from Uber, Lyft, and I believe it was Grubhub. So they're not going down quietly. That agreement that they're putting in front of you may very well have terms that try to limit your rights. But I'm pretty confident that Uber and Lyft are going to face pushback from the California legislature. It hasn't been a state to stand down. So please send me that agreement so I can take a look and make sure that I'm giving my 2 cents on the issue with appropriate reading. A lot of drivers will ask us, they come to us after accidents and they say, I caused the accident. Am I personally responsible for this? Is somebody going to go after my wages? Is somebody going to go after my bank account or try to take my house? The short answer is no. You are not going to be personally responsible for damages that are committed or incurred under your work as a rideshare driver. Now I'm not talking about assault and battery and If you are not engaged in rideshare activity, that's a different story. But let's talk about accidents and injuries that occur on the platform. Let's say you're driving down the street, you rear end somebody, you've got a passenger in your car. That passenger is not wearing a seatbelt, flies forward, hits their face on your seat, and it looks like they've got a broken nose. It's a terrible situation. First and foremost, it's going to be a high anxiety moment for any driver. This was clearly a mistake, but everybody's going, everybody's hysterical. You got a passenger that's hurt. You've got another driver who's coming out yelling at you. You need to take a breath. You need to remember that you do have insurance for this type of scenario. Accidents happen. That's what insurance claims are for. That's what personal injury cases are for. But nobody's coming after you directly. Uber and Lyft's insurance will provide coverage for you, which means paying for damages. They're going to pay for the passenger's bills. If the passenger has to miss work, they're going to pay for the passenger's lost wages, pain and suffering. And what's really important is that they're going to pay for your attorney. LegalRideshare, you'd come to us if you were the injured party. You were the one who needed representation to try to collect your medical bills, your lost wages. But if somebody's trying to collect those damages from you, Uber and Lyft are going to provide the lawyer to defend you, to protect your interests, and ultimately to negotiate that claim so that you don't have anything to worry about other than perhaps giving a statement. You might have to come into court one time and your lawyer would prep you and you would be just fine. But your personal liability is most typically not going to come into play. We've been getting some questions about drivers' rights to refuse rides. One of the things that has been really popular in the news is minors' use of rideshare. Drivers are put in this really tough spot when they have somebody who they believe is under the age of 18 or 16, depending on the circumstances, coming up to the car saying, I requested the ride, or my mom requested the ride, take me where I'm going. Uber and Lyft specifically prohibit minors from using rideshare. And we tell drivers all the time, that's a ride that you should not give. You are well within your right to refuse a ride because somebody's underage. You're well within your right to ask for ID if you believe that somebody is not of age. We encourage drivers to use that power to protect themselves, because if you get in a situation where you've got a minor in the back seat, you get in an accident or there's an accusation against you, you're going to be in a really tough spot because ultimately it's your responsibility to refuse rides that are not allowed. I have told lots of people, I was talking to a member of the media the other day about how unfair that is. Uber and Lyft are putting the onus on drivers to be bouncers. You shouldn't have the burden of carting people at the door. You shouldn't have the burden of making sure that each person that gets in your car should be on the Uber and Lyft platform. But at this stage, Uber and Lyft are not doing their job, and it's ultimately your reputation, your livelihood, your life on the line. So fair or not, we recommend that drivers do take that proactive step. Juan submitted a question. He wanted to know, what about an accident that has no major injury, just a minor one? Will LegalRideshare help with that? The answer, Juan, is yes. We would help navigate through that process. There are going to be some times where we're going to tell you, this is the type of claim that we really think you're best off handling yourself. And what do I mean by that? Again, it comes back to money for you. It's not fair for me to take on a case for you where I'm going to be, my fee is going to be more than its fair share, essentially. So we tell drivers, look, if you've been to the doctor, one time, you've been checked out, and you're okay, you don't need any additional treatment, that's a claim that you can probably handle. I would recommend that you give us a call and you ask for a consultation. And in that consultation, I or one of my associates would give you all the advice that you need to make sure that you're giving yourself the best opportunity to negotiate with the claims handler at the insurance company, to get that medical bill paid, to get that 1 or 2 days of wage loss reimbursed, and then get yourself back on the road and keep that money in your pocket rather than ours. If there's a more substantial injury claim, we were talking about before, you're going to need 4 weeks of physical therapy or injections or surgery, or you've got broken bones and you're going to be on pain medication and you're going to miss weeks of work. That's where the lawyer really comes into play and adds value. That's where the legal fee is worth it for you. We are not in the business of just grabbing cases. We're going to give you good advice to make sure that you're walking away with the most money that you can walk away with, and giving you the best opportunity to get back on the road and handle your business, which is driving that car and getting as many fares as possible. Getting back to the minors issue, drivers ask us all the time, what's the deal with child seats? Do I need a child seat in my car? If you're giving rides to children, yes. You are ultimately the one who is responsible for ensuring that the people in your car follow the law. And every state has slightly different rules about children's heights and weights and ages and who needs to be in a car seat and who doesn't. But when we're talking about car seats in rideshare vehicles, that's on you. I know I've got a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-month-old son, and we do use rideshare with the kids, but we're always carrying our own car seats. I think we are the minority. Most riders who come in with kids are expecting that the rideshare driver is going to facilitate that ride, or we've seen situations where they just try to buckle in the child. That's totally unacceptable. That's a terrible parenting decision. They deserve all the wrath that they get from society, and hopefully nothing ever happens to that kid. But if you are going to give that ride, you need to be the one to make sure that either you reject it, you say, look, we don't have a we don't have a car seat here, you can't take the ride, I'm not going to take you, or you've got a car seat in your back seat or trunk that you can pull out to facilitate that customer. With regard to income, drivers are always looking for ways to add dollars to their bottom line. We actually spoke with a company out in New York a couple weeks ago who was extremely upset that their rideshare drivers, it was a fleet company, had to pull out advertisements from their rideshare vehicles. And why did they have to do that? Because the New York courts decided that New York City's ban on rideshare advertisements was permissible and constitutional. I don't want to get too much into the legal argument there. We think that's the wrong decision because under the law, you're allowed to show advertisements on your property. And under the law, you've got a First Amendment right to do that. And we see all these companies that are popping up around major cities. They're in Chicago, they're in LA, they're in San Francisco, who are putting advertisements on rideshare vehicles. First of all, we want you guys to be able to make as much money as you possibly can. As fares continue to go down and Uber and Lyft continue to take a bigger piece of the pie, we're trying to figure out ways that rideshare drivers can be creative in adding dollar bills. I don't know if anybody here has used the Firefly or Vugo or Exec or any of these companies that are out there that are putting ads into drivers' cars. But they're a really interesting way to make some extra money. Is anybody doing that? If anybody can comment, I'm interested to hear in how that's going and what the process is like. I know at LegalRideshare, we actually have been working with a company called Exec that is putting tablets in the back of rideshare cars, allowing small businesses to upload their own content and advertise directly to rideshare passengers. Exec has had great success. We're involved with them and have been really excited to see how that's progressing. But I'm interested to hear from others if you guys have any any insight to that? Is it good money with all these companies? Is it a waste of time? What's easy, what's not? Have you been getting ticketed? LegalRideshare actually went through a fight with the city of Chicago about their ad ban a few years ago and got that overturned. The city had told rideshare drivers, no, you cannot advertise. We took them to court and said rideshare drivers deserve the same rights as the taxi industry. If taxis can put up taxi TV or put up rooftop displays or have decals on their doors, we as the rideshare industry should be able to supplement our income the same way. The city of Chicago, after about a year and a half of fighting, backed down. And as we're on a main street right now where Wrigley Field is a block away, we see these cars driving around with displays all over, whether they're inside the car, outside the car. I've seen a new one that's like a sticker company that's, or I guess a magnet company that's putting decals on car doors. It's kind of the Wild West right there in terms of advertising, but we love giving drivers the opportunity to make extra money, and we're really interested in hearing ways in which you guys are doing so. There's some questions that we've gotten about this this move towards autonomous vehicles and how that's going to change the laws with injuries and insurance claims and driver's rights. We've been following the gig economy and rideshare very closely, obviously, for years. I do think we're a ways away from autonomous vehicles. I don't think that rideshare drivers are going to be pushed off the road anytime soon. But the way that these laws are, or the way that this technology is coming at us, makes us wonder, how is the law going to change and how is it going to adapt? Cities are doing virtually nothing to get ready for autonomous vehicles, and we actually see that out in Phoenix, where about a year ago, the Uber self-driving car ran into the pedestrian, and we're just starting to hear more information about the fact that Uber hadn't programmed its vehicles to look for jaywalkers. Like, what kind of ridiculousness is that? I know that Uber had to handle an injury and wrongful death lawsuit based on that claim, but under what laws? There's not negligence claims or car accident laws that are written for autonomous vehicles, so we're watching that very closely. Let's back up just a little bit. I know that we've got a couple new viewers here who have been questioning, what is LegalRideshare? We see that sign in the background. We've seen your name. We've seen you, talking to drivers and advocating for drivers' rights, but what do you guys do? LegalRideshare is the only law firm in the United States that's entirely dedicated to Uber and Lyft and rideshare accident and injury claims. So we've been in this industry since basically the beginning. I was saying earlier that the idea got started the first time I saw a pink mustache on the front of a Lyft car, back when they actually used to use adhesive or whatever they would do to put those huge mustaches on the cars. We said, what is this industry? How is it changing transportation? And within a matter of weeks, we started getting questions from drivers as to, how do I protect myself? What's the insurance process? I've been in an accident, and how do I handle that claim? As the company grew, we've represented hundreds of drivers through the insurance claims process, allowing them to recover medical expenses after an accident, wage loss, if you're off work because your vehicle is totaled or because you're on pain medication because of an injury, or you're physically unable to drive because of an injury. We help drivers make claims for pain and suffering, loss in normal life, disability. We ensure that drivers' bottom lines are protected after a crash. When you are a rideshare driver, you don't have the luxury of taking 2 days paid off because you're not going to some big company and sitting behind a desk all day. If you can't drive, you can't make money, and ultimately LegalRideshare is ensuring that if you can't drive, you're going to be compensated for it. Juan is asking, will legal rideshare branch out to taking rideshare cases other than injury accidents? That's a really interesting question. It is something that we are looking into. My experience, my background is personal injury law. Before I started Legal Rideshare, I was a personal injury attorney. I help people in car accidents, I help people with slips and falls or construction claims. So that's really where I come from. But we have actually brought on attorneys that have experience in a variety of areas, including tax, including business development, including employee and employment rights. So as AB 5 takes hold and Uber and Lyft drivers are hopefully, at least per the law, converted to employees, and there's similar laws popping up nationwide, we do plan on opening up offices that will help drivers in those states navigate those processes. If you've been unfairly deactivated, you're going to have recourse. If you've been injured in a situation where insurance might not provide coverage to you, say you caused the accident, in California, you should be able to recover workers' compensation. So yes, we're looking to work with lawyers and hire lawyers and open offices that are going to branch out as you need more help in different areas to protect yourself. We are getting close to the end of our time, and I'm just hoping that if anybody has any last questions, they can reach out to us. Please leave a comment. We'd be happy to answer any of the final questions. But we also want to make sure that this isn't the end of our conversation. We are always available for rideshare drivers who have questions about anything rideshare related. I'm passionate about this. If you have an accident, give me a call. If you're injured, give me a call. But if you also just want to talk about what's going on in the rideshare industry and get our 2 cents, if you are working with companies, or I should say groups that are promoting rideshare rights. For instance, in Chicago, there's many groups. We worked closely with the Chicago Rideshare Advocates who are fighting for certain benefits, fighting for a deactivation board, fighting for a driver cap to ensure that the drivers who are in the system right now are protected, and that their money isn't taken away by drivers coming from other states and trying to take up the market. All these issues are things that relate to legal rideshare. Our concentration, our focus, our experience. We want to be part of that conversation. We want to support your movement. We want to support your drive. Please include us. If our voice can be used to help push your agenda, let us know. If our technology can be used to help your agenda, if you need help creating content to put in front of your group members or to push on social media, to advocate for your rights, let us know. Use our resources. We're all part of this same fight, and we want to fight together. This is a battle. Let me be very clear. Uber and Lyft are protecting themselves. They are watching their bottom line. They're now public companies. They have to worry about every dollar that they spend and every dollar that they make or don't make. The drivers are not going to be part of that equation. So let us fight for you. Let us advocate for your cause. And you are the ones who are on the ground. So if you see something that we're not seeing, let us know. And if you see a way we can help, pass along the information and we'll do everything we can. Unless there are any last questions, I do think that's the end of our live session today, but I will make sure that we can set up another one of these in the near future. Probably right before the end of the year, I can see us doing another question and answer, or just me giving my 2 cents on the rideshare industry. LegalRideshare.com has all of our contact information. You can always email us at help, HELP, at LegalRideshare.com. You can call me at 312-767-7950. And if you ever want to get in touch with us, don't hesitate. Just give us a call, shoot us an email, follow us on social media at LegalRideshare. It was great talking with you. Thanks for sharing your Sunday night, and we will be back soon. Thanks.